welcome to the deep dive. Our source material today takes us into a very strange space. We're looking at the systemic administrative erasure of a place that, by all accounts, was once undeniably real.
And this is really a deep dive into calculated silence. We're not talking about a town that was, wiped out by a war or some natural disaster.
No.
We're talking about a community that was systematically, vacuumed out of the official record. It was a removal executed entirely by bureaucracy.
That's the paradox that really drew us in here. This place was a functioning settlement. You could drive through it. You could send a letter there. Its name was on official maps.
Right. It was in county registers, national atlases.
And then just silence. No press conference, no public announcement, no warning. It just vanished from the official geography.
It became, for all intents and purposes, nowhere. So our mission here is to trace the timeline of this very deliberate deletion. We're going to analyze the vague, almost meaningless language that officials use to justify it.
And explore that chilling efficiency. How a simple bureaucratic decision can, as you put it, unpersonally an entire town.
It's a study in how easily history can be bent when the right administrative levers are pulled.
Okay, so let's start by establishing the reality of the place. The sources are very clear. This was not a ghost story. It wasn't some local myth.
No, and that foundation is essential. You have to start there to grasp the sheer scale of the erasure. The evidence is concrete. People lived there.
Ordinary lives.
Exactly. They had salary jobs. They paid municipal fees. Their kids went to a local school. For a while, this town needed everything any other town would need. Utilities, waste disposal, a post office. It had registered voters.
And that kind of mundane existence, it leaves a paper trail. An irrefutable one, which is what makes the idea of a simple mistake so hard to believe.
A huge paper trail.
We're talking about more than just a few old photographs. The sources point to really tangible bureaucratic proof. Things like long-term lease agreements, archived council minutes, property tax records.
Official zoning maps. Maps that laid out the town's specific boundaries, plot by plot. Think about the density of that evidence. Every single water meter, every power pole, every title deed. It all anchored this place in reality.
And the testimony from former residents seems to back this up completely.
It's very consistent. They all basically say, and this is a quote, "Yeah, it was real. We had a little grocery store, and then one day, the county office simply refused to acknowledge we were there anymore."
The disappearance itself is what's so strange. It avoids all the drama you'd expect. There were no breaking news reports, no disaster footage.
The buildings weren't even leveled, not at first. What happened was much, much quieter. It was an informational demolition aimed at the idea of the place, the record of it.
So the town didn't stop existing physically.
It just stopped being acknowledged by any system of record. And that distinction is the key to this whole thing.
So if the town hadn't physically collapsed, who was the first to notice something was wrong? This next part of the story is, it's what convinced the source authors that this was absolutely deliberate.
Right, because the first red flag didn't come from a resident. It came from the world of cartography.
The map makers.
The map makers. These are quiet professionals whose entire job is just to accurately record space. They were the first ones to register the deletion.
How'd they notice?
During a routine update of a printed atlas, a name that they had included in the previous edition was, it was just gone from the newest version.
And at first they just assumed it was a mistake. A typo.
Exactly. A simple drafting oversight. It happens. But the sources show these internal memos where the cartographers tried to re-verify the location with the state's geographical information systems, the GIS databases.
The official source of truth.
The source of truth. And the record was gone. Not changed, not updated. It was gone entirely.
So the mistake theory just dissolves at that point.
It evaporates. It wasn't a printing error. It was a source data deletion. And from there, it just escalated. It became systemic.
Okay, describe that. How did this systemic removal actually spread? Because it sounds like it happened across all these different digital platforms almost at once.
It was synchronized. First, federal and state GIS databases were scrubbed. Then all the digital mapping platforms that rely on that data, they just fell in line. If you tried to search for the town's name, you'd just get a no results found error.
Even if you're searching in their historical data.
Even then. And the practical result of that was pretty severe. If you tried to plot a route there using any standard GPS, the software would actively avoid the area. It wouldn't let you.
You couldn't tell the system to go there.
You couldn't. And worse, if you manually entered the town's previously published coordinates, the exact latitude and longitude, The software wouldn't even give you an error.
What would it do?
It would snap, that's the technical term. It would automatically pull your cursor to the nearest recognized waypoint, maybe an empty field, a patch of woods, a highway miles away. The GPS just lied, pretending your destination was never where the coordinates said it was.
That level of manipulation it's incredible. It suggests a huge degree of coordination. But what really stood out in the sources as alarming was the effort to delete the past.
Absolutely. That's the most chilling part. It wasn't enough to just update new maps. The effort went backwards in time into public archives. Older digital versions of state maps suddenly became hard to find.
And in some government databases, the sources say those archived copies were actually replaced.
Replaced entirely with new versions that already had the town removed.
That is not bureaucratic sloppiness. That's historical suppression. A map is supposed to be a record of a specific time. To alter an archive like that, this shows a clear intent to make the town's existence completely inaccessible.
And if you think about the logistics, this required coordination between departments that rarely, if ever, talk to each other. The Department of Transportation for the road signs, NOAA's cartographic division, local land registries, state archives.
That kind of synchronized effort points to a mandate coming from somewhere very powerful.
A centralized source, definitely.
Okay, so with all this effort, someone must have eventually just asked the obvious question. Where did the town go?
They did. A local journalist, a former resident, and the response they got was a masterclass in administrative obfuscation, a total smokescreen.
What kind of language did they use? What were the specific phrases?
Oh, they were textbook. The location was administratively reclassified.
Which suggests change in paperwork, not reality.
Exactly. Or they'd say it was no longer a recognized settlement, again implying the issue was with recognition, not existence. But the most common phrase was that the town had been merged into surrounding zones.
Now, that one sounds harmless enough, like a simple zoning change to streamline tax collection or something.
It's meant to sound harmless, but it directly contradicts the actions taken on the ground. That's the critical contradiction.
So?
Well, if a town is just merged, the infrastructure is still there, it just has a new name. But the sources confirm this aggressive campaign of physical erasure that merging just doesn't explain.
Right. Why take down all the physical road signs that point to the town?
Why did the utility companies stop recognizing the town's name for service addresses? And this is maybe the most unsettling detail.
What's that?
Why were former residents sent official letters telling them to immediately stop using the town's name on any documents?
Wow. That's not merging. That's an active suppression campaign.
The place wasn't renamed or absorbed. It was targeted for non-existence. The sources use a term for it. It was unpersoned. The goal was total dissociation, both historical and geographical.
So if we accept that this erasure was comprehensive, that it took this massive effort, the question has to be why? Why go to all that trouble?
Well, when you look past the official fog and you actually investigate the kind of infrastructure that was in the area, certain patterns start to emerge. Patterns that don't look like a normal town.
What do you mean?
The sources point to facilities that were highly specialized, things that a typical civilian town just wouldn't need. Highly restricted access zones, government-funded research facilities.
There was also mention of unique high-voltage substations, right?
Yes, suggesting energy needs far beyond what a small residential community would require. The whole infrastructure points towards a singular, fixed operational purpose, not a permanent community.
And there's some testimony from former workers that seems to back that up.
Limited, but very crucial testimony. They talk about this feeling of impermanence and of secrecy.
They described incredibly strict confidentiality rules enforced by security personnel, not the local police.
And they mentioned specific zones, entire sections of the complex that they were told never to approach or photograph under any circumstances. One of them really provides the key assessment. He said the town wasn't built to be a community. It was built for a specific, time-limited government purpose.
And that leads us to the coldest, most bureaucratic explanation for why it was erased, the theory of administrative inconvenience.
Right. Once its purpose was served, the research was done, the project was over, the place just became a liability.
But erasure still seems like overkill for just inconvenience. Wouldn't it be simpler and cheaper to just sell the land or repurpose the site? The sheer effort involved suggests a bigger risk than just a few awkward questions.
That's a fair point, but when you're analyzing high-level bureaucracy, legal liability is often seen as the single greatest risk. So for the agency responsible, the cleanest solution is the one that removes all future accountability.
So deleting the location removes all legal responsibility for what happened there.
It eliminates the need to respond to Freedom of Information requests 30 years from now. It avoids any difficult environmental impact questions.
It's a preemptive strike against accountability.
Exactly. If something was tested there, or something failed there, or something was stored there, it's just exponentially easier to manage if there's no official there to begin with. The place can't generate lawsuits if the paper trail leading to it has been completely destroyed.
The chilling efficiency of it is, it's the weaponization of silence and time. It wasn't done with bulldozers, not really. It was done with database deletions and taking down a few road signs and then just letting memory and nature do the rest.
And that silence is still the most powerful tool. But the physical reality, it still holds a trace. If you know exactly where to look and you use old maps, the sources say the roads are still there.
Deteriorating, that there.
Some of the buildings are still standing too, decaying, but you can tell they were man-made. Nature hasn't fully taken it back yet.
But officially, for the state, for the public record, that whole complex is nothing. It is officially nowhere.
And that was the entire point of the exercise, to turn a place from existence into administrative fiction.
We tend to think history is permanent, that once something is built, a footprint remains forever. But this deep dive, it really proves otherwise.
It does. If the decision is made at the right level, a place doesn't need to be destroyed to be forgotten. It just needs to be removed from the systems we all use to define reality.
It really makes you wonder about the sheer scale of classified access you would need to pull something like that off, to scrub the records so cleanly across so many different state and federal agencies.
And that just leaves us with this final, unresolved question. It's the one that has to linger. Given how quiet and meticulous this erasure was, how it was done without any violence, just coordinated data suppression, what are the chances this was the only place that vanished like this? Maybe it's just one of a few instances where the initial deletion was just sloppy enough that a few cartographers happened to notice before the silence became complete. Because places don't just disappear on their own. Someone, somewhere, signs the order.